Chapter 16. A learned Italian. Seizing his arm, friends along an outly divide, Dance almost carried him towards the window in order to obtain a better view of his features by the aid of imperfect light that struggled through the grating. His men of small stature, hair bleached rather by suffering and furrowed than by age. A deep-set penetrating eye almost buried beneath the thick grey eyebrow, and a long, still black beard reaching down to his breast. His thin face, deeply furrowed by care, and the bold outline of his strongly marked features tokened a man more accustomed to exercise his mental faculties and physical strength. I dropped perspiration now standing on his brow, while the garments that hung about him were so ragged that one could only guess the pattern by which it was originally been fashioned. Age might have numbered 60 or 65 years, but a certain briskness and appearance of vigor in his movements made probable that he had aged more in captivity than in the course of time. He received the enthusiastic greeting of his young acquaintance with evident pleasure, as though chilled affections were rekindled, invigorated by his contact with one so warm and ardent. Indeed, was grateful cordiality for his kindly welcome. He remarked at the moment been suffering bitterly to find no attentions had been so fondly reckoned on discovering means of gaining his liberty. Thence perceived that he were possible to retrieve from my entrance here. Vision and good depends on jailers being entirely ignorant of it. Managing his opening, stopped and waved a stone evenly in spite of the weight, then fitting his place, he said, he removed the stone very carelessly. Suppose you had no tool to aid you. Why? Exclaimed Dante with astonishment. Do you possess any means myself some with the profession of file, in order necessary chisel and pencil and a lever? Oh, how should I like to make see the product of unity and patience? Well, in the first place, here's my chisel for saying so sharp, strong blade of animated beechwood. If what you try to make that, cried Dart. When I came from bedstead and the very tool sufficed me to find the road which I came to the distance about 50 feet. 50 feet? Grant Dart was terrified. Do not speak so loud, young man. Don't speak so loud. Speaking in curves, a prison like this is prison station outside the door of this. They'll hopefully overhear the conversation of the prisoners. But they believe I'm sharp and alone here. That makes no difference. You say you dug it away. If it's distance 50 feet to get to you, will do. That's about the distance that separates your chamber from mine. Only, unfortunately, they don't count. Clever, right. One of the necessary geometrical instruments. Calculate my scale proportion. Calculating ellipses of 40 feet, made it 50. And effective target to reach out of the wall. Peace road. Threw myself into the sea. However, I kept along the corridor. I went to a table weapon, so I relieve it. Labor nor in vain, for I find that the car looked from a courtyard full of builders. That's true, it does, but the corridor speak of only bounds outside my wall. There are 3 others. Do you know anything of their situation? If one is put against the solid rock, would you make 10 experienced miners? 2 experienced work of a tool for many years with perforated. This joins the lower part of the governor's apartment. We worked way through. Should only get into some look-up cellars, where it must be necessarily be recaptured. Fortunately, last time himself faces on stop a minute. No way to face. The wall of which you spoke was one of your fixed loophole which light admitted to the chamber. This loophole could have been firepost outside. To an opening through a charcoal of power prepared for security first 3 on bars. It was quite our apprehension, even the mind of most suspicious jailers could possibly be prisoner's escape. The stranger asked questions. Very table next to the window. Come up, said the dance. I mean, the bed mounted on the table and ran with his granted two back figures full, held up both hands. Stranger who's that's a new number of plays. So majority of items remain correct in the present of years. Large sitting beat cattle livid. After the table actually started hand down his end from then to his shoulder. The bang double for sending of the dungeon thing holding to the right. And the hand between the upper part of the window. McMahon perfectly from top to bottom. Instant afterwards, Leafy drew back his head, saying, I thought so, and falling back from the shoulder of town, texture descended nimbly the table to his ground. What bothered you that you thought? His wife seems to have turned things from the table. Hilda pointed upon it around the house, said at length, it is so. This side of the chamber looks out upon the kind of open gallery, where tall, continuously passing, and sentries keep watch day and night. Quite sure of that, certain, short of shoulders, echo on the top of his musket. Anyway, drew my head so quickly. Was fearful my was also deceiving. Well, cried Dance. Think then the utter impossibility of escaping through your dungeon. Well, said the commanding then, and the third person of Wilbur Garby down the old suddenly pronounced it was a profound revelation, shows there was real now coming. Dance, in the man of philosophy with high hopes so long, only nourishes judgment mingled with admiration. Tell me, entreat you, who and what you are, said he at length. Never makes a Michael Griffin of himself, willingly down to the Granger, if indeed is feeling trophy picking one. Now, alas, I'll have aid you anyway. See not so you can consult for me on the strength of your powerful mind. Let me know who you really are. Granger smiled a melancholy smile, and listened, said he, I am the abbot Ferreira. Imprisoned, as you know, in the shadow of death since the year 1811, privileged to wish to have been quite free in Portugal, Prince Charles. In the year of 1811, transferred to Piedmont of France. In this period alone, the definite significant to wish warned by Napoleon and bestowed on him his son, named King of Rome in his cradle. Very proud then, written change is just formally named the prince 4 years afterwards, his cloth of power will be overthrown, and who reigns in front of the moment? Napoleon II. No, Louis the 16th, 18th, brother of Louis the 16th, unscrutable ways of providence for great and straight purpose, please in heaven the pains of man's raise him up, so based, dance, 10. Tension, all tend to rivet on man, suffocated in misfortune, covering himself destiny with others. Yes, that's continued. He do the same as it was in England. After Charles I, Cromwell. After Cromwell, James II, then Charles II, then James II. And some in son-in-law relations, some Prince of Orange, that order becomes a king. New confession of people in constitution and liberty. You know, my friend, they're returning with dance and being able to kingdom gave a proper to a young little viewers come to power. Probably, if ever getting out of prison, we're prisoners, but I forget this sometimes. And in moments when my mental vision is principal, pretending for offense myself, wins for, yeah. Caught in 1807, I lived dream of a plane Napoleon trying to realize. In 1811, we caught like Master Valley. I'd order big or pay for Italy, and so it's not going to be a stubborn quantity of pretty personality. Regal tyrannical ruler. What's from large compact and powerful by lately, of course. Prince of Power, Caesar Burger, and Crown Simpleton. Fiend, entering my reoffended between me. And Alexander the Sixth and Clement the Seventh, who knows the scene now, but attempted proof-ably in the point that they were able to complete their work. Italy seemed faced with misfortune. They were bound to. Don't understand his life for such matters. Napoleon clearly knew something of, much as seen the person with them. Clement the Seventh and Alexander the Sixth knew nothing. Maybe not. he asked. The priest who here in the terror district generally thought to be ill. Mad, you mean, don't you? You don't like to say so, Francis Dunn smiled. Well then, I'm afraid a bit of smile. Let me answer your question. Fool, acknowledging a poor mad prisoner of terror death for many years, different business. What's it to me like sanity? No probability should be permitted. Not making sport for children, it seems to make profound but further this suffering and despair. Don't remains remote. Short my turn mute and motionless at length, he said, he abandoned all hope of escape. See was utter impossibility. The envious and temperate and almighty evidently does not approve. Nay, be not discouraged. Do not be expecting too much hope if you seize your first attempt. Why not try to find opening in another direction from that you just so unfortunately failed. Alas, to show how little notion I have can have of what government and selective focus. I was especially frustrated at the talk of beginning over again. In the first place, 4 years making tools first, then 2 years scraping and digging out of earth, out of granite itself, then not growing fatigue, not being moved huge stones, sure once being buffled, loosened. All day the parsons standing efforts from the labor of praise of by night, the crowd to carry away fair injuries, hard-bonds meant into Asia and substance, enduring of stones themselves. It was a matter of earth and rubbish to die up, without a breakthrough of decades. Early roots, Christian malaria in the hollow part of it, but well enough, really short joke, cares only pathway and no handful of dust without being discovery. We also fully believe it comes to the end, same as undertaking. Comes to exactly having enough strength to make it. Hold out the determination. Now, the moment of recognition, instead of my hope for that's for me. No repeat again. Nothing shall induce me to new attempt to friends of my pleasure. Don't hold his head when the other might not see how joy is for a pain away. Him don't. Way of the every plan, everything that has been better. I'm so going to stand there. Giving everyone's courage and indeed some things preferable for an instant. Undermine the ground for 50 feet. For 3 years of labor was unsuccessful, was conducted breakfast overhanging the sea. Only his way in the height of 50, 60 perhaps 100 feet. And risked being dashed base against the rock. We were fortunate enough to escape the fire of sentinels, and furthermore, their perils past, the nerve trimmed to a large distance of 3 miles against the shore. Luke is telling me when I had a dream such a scheme, knowing himself rather than death. But throughout my way clean life was the death of courage came first turn with ideas, with their courage. No order and less strong than he who attempted, but he had not sufficient revolution to take. Rather of narrow calculation. The same person with incredible patience tried to find himself too reckless and proud of attempt. No turn out done all this way. One in Buffalo dance. During my age 50 feet, dance was within 100. During age 50 to about 3 years of task. You who was first half of old, affected by 6. Very patient terms plant. Not trying to idea away from the life trying to human. Maybe I was one of the element down once in the let me hear. How these silent brilliant dive like himself drink from similar task. But he was often of a mere movement's sake, plunged bottom of the sea and fetch up a bright coral branch. If they maintains project, who is now known and for pure toughness, in water more than 12 feet long. One starts to go to forward by example, Candace companion. Remember that was more than the mermaid return again. And this is Tom McBrown Eradicate. Merman suddenly came. I found what you were in search of. Very started heavy indeed. But he, having had a kick and tried to pray. He knew what it was discovered. Got all through which you were bored away from the cell you work by here. Then in the same direction as the outer gallery, does it not? It does. He's not about 15 feet from it. about that. Well then, I'll tell you what we must do. We must pierce through the corridor, forming fire opening at the middle, with the top part of the cross. So playing your plan rapidly, so we shall get in the house in the gallery you described. Kill the sentinel and guard and make our escape. Or if I find it quiet, you will get ensure just encourage what you possess of strength. Not deficient in secretions will abundantly prove yours. Shall now see me prove mine. One is my dear friend. Right now. It's clear you do not understand the nature of the courage which I'm endowed. Using and making with strength for patience, a clear from the exercise in the beginning when tough the night before. It was not very tough for the day. But then young man, brave give me full attention. I thought could not be doing anything pleasing by trying to fit innocent being at liberty. Trying to commit no offence, murder not condemnation. Have your emotions changed? Do you think you feel more guilty in making an attempt into a kind of mind? No. I wish to incur guilt. Having to offence myself being waging war against circumstances, not men. Once I've seen boys to reward before I get sick against penance, we afraid to refuse how to take away life. Not moving to pride when escape done. It's possible the way of liberty was taken now for the scruple is hurry from attaining it. Tell me, cried prayer. We've seen you from talking down in jail in a base of wood, torn from your best and took himself in his clothes, endeavoring to escape. Even the fact never occurred to me. For the natural partners of commission of a crime made me think of it. It was because simply allow the natural equivalent to being a certain line of genius. China's nature seems of sight and sharing blood, given sense of smell and showing where prey is within reach. Only existing enabled to measure the leap necessary to commit him, bring a victim, and on the boundary line idea of blood. Even not alone nor the federal life. By drinking head of taking life. Natural protection, physiological formation. Answer confused finally replacement forces. Conscious working in mind, while the soul, were two distinct forms of ideas and don't perceive in the head and do emanate from the heart. This my imprisonment of failure. Nor over the most celebrated escape cases on record. And really being successful, those being ground with full success been long meditated upon and carefully arranged. That to instance escape of Dr. Buffon, Chateau with Fin, the Abbé Tubicois from Oliver Latry from the Bastille. Near the verse for chance sometimes for opportunity there's the best of all. Let us therefore wait patiently with some favorable moment or send itself profit by it. I said doubt. You might have gone to a tedious lay or something word and life and set itself on where at all and urge refreshment encourage you. I assure you so I had turn that forth with occasional support. What do you do? I wrote of study. We then you've been ink and paper? No, she answers that. And more number than made ink, pens and paper. Yes. Transferred relation typical believing prayers. Then pay me this myself, my dear young friend. I will show you my heart, don't worry. Roots of thought and reflection with the whole life. Many men say that seem to well seem at Rome. Before the St. Mark's Convent offence in Paul, Florence. You're waiting the time to be arranged in order within the wall of death. What they call treason and mental monarchy in Italy. Been going large quarter of one. What you written on it? And two of my shirts are invented to. Preparation of cleaner, smooth, as rather parchment. rather than a chemist thought, and you learned a voice here. All the friends. Which work must have many books. So you had any? I had nearly 5,000 volumes in my library room, but after reading them over many times, only 150 were chosen books about possesses. Each summary of human knowledge, at least one that man is easily know. The treatment you love reading and studying those 150 volumes to renew them in my heart. But since I've been in prison, I got very slight effect of memory and they were called their contents really the page working for me. Quite all of fluidity, Jennifer, Plutarch, Titus Livis, Tacitus, Trello, Drummond, Dante, Montanus, Shakespeare, Spinoza, Machiavelli, and Bossuet are named only the most important. We doubtless granted a variety of languages, so we have a read all things. Like, yes, I speak five modern tongues, as I say German, French, Italian, English, and Spanish. I had ancient Greek, I learned modern Greek. Don't speak a cool ways until I'm trying to improve myself. Improve yourself. Why? How can you manage to do so? Why? When vocabulary words are no new, turn brings enable me to press my thoughts with their medium. No nearly 1,000 words I told you it's necessary. Maybe 100,000 in dictionaries. Can't hope to be very fluent. Then you would have difficulty in creating my wants and wishes. You quite much you could ever require. Strong into the wonder of doubts, whose fancy is one what gives them supernatural powers. I'm hoping to find some perfecting light to bring them down to the level of human beings. And even that furnished Japan's early man's right to pick up. Made some excellent ones that could be invested preferred to all others once known. I joined the vision watching the third order of meager days. I reflect the cartridges of the hands of these fishes. Gives imagine library broken the wire which when they Friday and Saturday, avoiding the beans and using the tucker pens. You can raise my tucker and get source. I was chasing the past, forget the present, using all the past history. He's no room we have myself, but ink. What do you make ink? Formerly a fireplace in a dungeon, but that was a one day I became better argument in prison. Still left me many years new, so I've taken cover of coding of sort. The sort is involved in a portion of wine brought me every Sunday. Of course, better ink cannot be defined. Cool. Very important notes which is close attention to quiet, which one I think is right around the blood. And when to dance, may I say all this, whenever you please, pardon happy. Well, then let me directly, came the young man. Follow me then, said Nabby, who entered the subterranean passage, which he soon disappeared, followed by dots.